Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Salad Bowl Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Thompson, and today I get to share with you somebody I can't say that I've known for a long time, but based off of our first conversation, I knew this is somebody I wanted to share with you, just purely based off of her leadership approach. I'm looking forward to jumping into this next episode, but before we do, I want to just ask you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would truly appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and dive into the next episode of the Salad Bowl Podcast.
Now, give me my theme music.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl. You are now tuned in to the...
Listen up, don't care if you about to pass out or you just getting up. You really did your thing with this one, Kevin, gotta give it up. Messages you bring and be motivation to live it up. We out here really normalizing authenticity. Can't be talking all the time cause that mean you ain't listening. I think you look better when you smile, I see you glistening. Communication helping me to see what you envisioning. Yeah, back to the mission then. Whether you black, white, brown, yellow or green, more can be accomplished as a team. Together the problem is never as hard as it may seem. Lot of captivating convos like Martin telling his dream. We choosing curiosity over certainty. You should certainly subscribe to this one here with some urgency. This a win. Even Callie know. You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
Salad Bowl Podcast.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
Yeah, you are now tuned in to the...
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
You are now tuned into the Salad Bowl Podcast with Kevin Thompson.
All right, welcome back to the Salad Bowl Podcast. Today, I get to share with y'all somebody that I've met at my job, but after our first conversation, it just seemed like we clicked. I really enjoy her leadership aspects, her worldviews, and I had to share her on the Salad Bowl Podcast. Today, I get the opportunity to welcome Alicia Polk to the Salad Bowl Podcast. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here, and it's a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure and an honor to sit with you. We were just talking, like, I've been super excited about this because I still have a hard time taking this whole thing seriously. When I say, hey, do you mind coming to sit with me? The fact that people actually say yes and come chill with me is
wouldn't we?
And well, you know, there's probably somebody out there who's like, Kev, I would never take that invitation. Like,
We won't talk about why, but I'm sure there's some issues for themselves to figure out with that one.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, Alicia, just to give you a up front, I won't get too deep into her intro, but she is a Chief Warrant Officer in the United States Marine Corps, dedicated mother, dedicated wife, and I would say up front, those are the things that are glaring about you that I know about you, but hopefully with this conversation, I get to find out a little bit more. We get a little bit deeper in.
Absolutely.
Actually, before we even get into it, I wanted to kind of highlight our first conversation that intrigued me, that was like, oh, you know what? I really do like her worldview. You were saying, you were talking to me about when your people, your employees, your Marines come in and they check in with you, how you kind of introduce them to your leadership style. And I thought it was very unique, but very authentic as well. Do you mind sharing?
So it's funny you say that, because when you introduced me, you said I was a Chief Warrant Officer in the Marine Corps. I was a wife, I was a mother. Why I am all those things, there's a particular order. I'm a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend, and then a Marine. Those things are always a constant in my life. I will always be a wife, and when I approach a situation, I'm going to look at it from a wife's perspective, then a mom's perspective, a daughter, a sister, a friend, so on and so forth. I think it's very important to understand that just because my job or my career is a Marine doesn't mean that I approach every situation as a Marine.
That's interesting. Has it always been that way?
No.
Okay.
I will admit there was a point in time, obviously before I became a wife and a mom, I didn't approach things that way. I approached it as I'm a Marine all the time, 24/7. And I realized very quickly that the Marine Corps isn't always what you think it is.
Tell me more, because it seemed like there's a lot of meat on those bones.
So, oh, absolutely. So everyone thinks that the Marine Corps is the end all be all. You're always a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. While you will always be a part of the institution won't always be a part of you. And you have to know when to walk away from it, because it will walk away from you. We transition at different phases in the Marine Corps, and I realized very quickly that as I transitioned, I became more and more of a number. And realizing that you are merely a number kind of changed your perspective. It changed my perspective. I realized once I got promoted to corporal, everything after that was about numbers. I had a cutting score to get promoted to sergeant. I had a lineal number to get promoted to staff sergeant, to get gunny. You have a number associated with you when you transition to become an officer. When I'm eligible for a promotion, I'm given a number. When I walk in to get anything done, I'm asked, what's your EDIPI number? What's your number? I am identified by that number. But when I'm at home, I'm identified as a wife, babe, mom, daughter. And I realize that those titles are more important.
How are we starting off already? You're dropping some gems right there, because we hear that often, right? Like we're just a number, or people call us, "Hey, you're just a number." But literally, everything that falls into the organization really does come down to a number.
We are. And granted, I've never stood on recruiting duty. I know you have.
Unfortunately,
and you can.
I'm joking.
You can probably speak on this more than I can. But as a recruiter, you have a mission, and your mission is about a number. It's, can I get this number? Can I get this many females, this many males to join the Marine Corps by this date? Numbers. And then I send you to MEPS, and we are literally assigned numbers.
Yes.
We get on a bus, and we're given a number. We count off by the numbers. We get to boot camp, and when you're reporting, it's how many recruits are there? We're numbers. From beginning to end. And to me, once you realize that in the institution, you change who you are and how you operate within the institution.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So, Alicia, we're going to get into our first segment of the day. And the first segment is called The Harvest. And that's where we kind of get to the roots of who you are. Of course, we've already discussed lightly your perspective on, some ideologies when it comes to the Marine Corps. But like, who was Alicia Polk before the Marine Corps even was a thought in her head?
So I'm an Army brat.
Okay.
So when you ask me where'd you come from, I'm like, pick a year and I'll tell you a duty station. Both my parents are retired Army. We traveled majority of my life. And I can honestly say I didn't realize my parents were military until we moved to Korea.
No kidding.
So I had a very stable upbringing in comparison to what my kids are going through now. I was born in Hawaii. We moved to Virginia and stayed there until we moved to Korea. And after that, it was no holds barred. It was move after move after move.
Dang.
But it was a wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Does one place feel more like home than another?
No. Something that I grew up learning very quickly, and it had nothing to do with moving or being military. It was home is where you make it. So whether it was Virginia, Seoul, Korea, Greece, Georgia, Maryland, home is where you make it. Home is where you walk in the door and everyone's excited to see you. So even when I PCSed as an adult, home was always wherever my parents were.
Yeah.
Because it was walking through the front door, and yes, I still have a key to my parents' house.
Good for you.
At 39. It was walking through the front door and it's, hey, Alicia's home. It's getting those warm hugs. It's knowing that everything is where you left it. So no one place feels more like home than anything.
Yeah.
Now it's wherever my kids are. Wherever my kids are, that's home.
Yes.
Because there's nothing like opening up the door and mommy.
That feeling.
Your husband looks back and he's like, hey, what's up?
Your house sounds very similar to mine.
Right? It's like, hey, what's up?
Right.
But it's a great feeling even still.
Yeah.
Because even with that, hey, what's up? There's a lot exchanged in that tone. And
yeah.
oh, that's how to.
Yes. Yes. I need some relief.
Dad needs some relief. Like, okay, Dad, go away. I got it.
Yeah.
Take a breather.
For sure. It's crazy because like when I hear you talk about home, I think very similarly. Like I'm also a military brat, but like really grew up in Atlanta. But like now that I'm about to transition out the military, I think to myself, like a lot of military people say, I'm going back home, after my military career. And I don't have any want to go back to Atlanta, Georgia, because I feel like we learn innately like that home is wherever we're at. And
Exactly.
like you said, it's the smells, it's the feeling, it's the, the when you walk through the door, the kids run into you. Like I feel like I can make home anywhere. Hence why I think that I've settled in New Orleans pretty well, because we have a support system here that it feels like home. It feels like home.
I know, like we talk about retirement, and I'm like, I don't want to stay in the States. We're going to go overseas, and
Nice.
we're going to build a home there. We're going to build a different life, because home is wherever you make it. Home is wherever you are. Home is where your heart is.
Home is where your heart is.
Says.
Yeah. I think that, and I think it's really valid. Hence why it's been a saying for so long. So what does your family look like?
So I am the oldest of 3 girls.
No
So
kidding.
I have 2 younger sisters. We call ourselves the ABC girls because we are ABC. My middle sister is a nurse practitioner out in Atlanta, Georgia.
No kidding.
Yeah. We all graduated high school out there. I say we, but actually she and I graduated high school out of Fayette County.
Yay.
We had more golf cart paths than we had paved street roads.
Yes.
It's not a bad thing, but it's definitely a different way of living for some. And then I have a younger sister who's in the Air Force.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She's in the Air Force.
How do your parents feel about that? Them coming up both Army, you choose the Marine Corps, and she chose the Air Force.
So it's really wild. My parents are so proud.
Really?
They are. They are so proud. And I think it's more so because we made decisions on our own. I think it's very important as parents that we remember we raise our children to leave us. And if our children don't leave us, short of them not being able to, my thought is we failed. I want to put my children in the same position my parents put me in, to make a decision and to see it through. I made a decision to join the Marine Corps, and I remember telling my dad, I was like, hey, I'm joining the Marine Corps. He's like, what? He's like, are you sure that's what you want to do? Like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It's like, you sure you don't want to go to the Army or the Air Force? And I said, well, I went to the Army recruiter first. And he was like, oh, you don't want to do this or this or that. And I was like, okay, the Marine Corps will take me. And they did.
Yeah. That's pretty cool though. Like, because I've gotten that question, right? Like being Marines or being in the military, somebody's asked me like, hey, what if one of your daughters wanted to join the Marine Corps? And I think they look for an answer of like what I would tell them to do. But like, I think similarly to what your dad said, like, if that's what you want to do, I can't change it for you. Right. You're going to make your decision.
The only thing he really asks is why. Why? And very much so, like I asked my Marines why. You have to know the why behind it to see what motivates them. What motivated me to join the Marine Corps? Why? Is it something that you're actually going to be able to see through? Are you doing this because it's a fad, because it's a pass by night type thing where you're just saying that and you're going to start the process and then you're going to fall out of it? Or is this something that I'm going to continue to motivate you through? And we sat down, we discussed it, and he was like, all right, let's go. And my parents have been there every step of the way.
Really?
Every step of the way.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Even with my youngest sister, we've made it a point to continue to encourage her in her Air Force dreams and career. She leaves probably in like 2 weeks to go to the academy to accept her commissioning.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So
I know your parents are extremely proud.
Like I said, they're very
nurse
supportive.
practitioner,
They're super
2
proud.
officers in the family.
So it's
that's really cool.
It is.
That's really cool. Just to see, I mean, do you feel like there was anything that your parents gave you and your sisters, like those intangible things that help you set up what life looks like right now?
They gave us the ability to make mistakes. There was never a mistake that we made that our parents just kind of held over our heads. So often people make a mistake and they let it define who they are. And my parents didn't do that. We make a mistake and it's like, all right, so what'd you learn? Okay, how do we fix it? Let's move on. just remember the mistake that you made. So it's not actually a mistake, it's a lesson.
Yes.
It's only a mistake if you continue to do it and you never learn from it.
Yes, that is, man, I need to jot that one down as far as like a parenthood rule of thumb, because I think very often we see parents and I'll even just use myself, like sometimes we do hold on to things, or we're always, hard on our kids in a certain area, but to be able to say like, hey, what did you learn from that is a very needed approach when we're dealing with young minds.
It is. And then my parents made it a point to ensure that we understood that different children have different needs. So while you may think that I'm harder on you in this than I am on her, understand that you're different children.
Yes.
And I have to approach the same situation differently.
Yes.
Because you're different.
Yeah.
So it's understanding our differences and being able to capitalize on it.
Yes. That's what I mean. I've said it even a couple of times, even on this podcast, is like fair doesn't mean the same.
No,
right?
It doesn't.
Like sometimes you'll end up, I'm being fair, but I have to treat you differently. Yeah. That should be the goal. So life in school, like, I mean, coming up in middle high school, what kind of student were you?
I was a horrible student.
Really?
I was a horrible student.
And landed in the Marine Corps. Say it ain't so.
Right? So I was 100% an A or an F student.
Oh.
Once I got it, I was ready to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't get it, I'd struggle through it, figure it out. All right, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hence my dad's approach, like, why are you doing this? Is this something you're going to actually see through?
Right.
Or is it like, you got it and now you're over it and you went out?
Right.
But no, I was a horrible student. Granted, I enjoyed going to school mostly because of the socialization.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to go and dress up. You do your hair. You socialize, all that fun stuff. But I was a horrible student.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you? I mean, and this is a recent question that I started to consider. Right, like, you mentioned the fact that you had two younger sisters. Mm-hmm. And I'm also I'm the baby in my family, right? That's always a thing for the oldest. There seems to be a certain responsibility that only the oldest child understands, or the certain pressure or the certain expectations that y'all go through that the middle child gets overlooked, and the younger child, everybody's just so giddy about that last one that came through. Do you feel like in your household, like your sisters looked up to you? Was there what the relationship look like?
No, we fought like cats and dogs.
Really?
Absolutely.
How much separation between y'all?
So between myself and Brittany, there's about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Between myself and Courtney, 16 years.
16 years. Okay,
yeah.
So big gap there.
There's a huge gap there. But we fought mainly because we cared. So it's like, you're not mommy. I know I'm not mommy, but I'm going to protect you from yourself.
Yes.
And even as I've gotten older, probably like literally in the last 6 months, we've had conversations about it where it's like, that wasn't your responsibility. And I'm like, well, I understand it's not my responsibility. I still have a level of ownership in it.
Yes.
We would have friends that would tell you, I would make my sisters cry and like, all right, we're over it, moving on. Yeah. And then I'd be pissed if someone else made them cry, because I felt as though I failed in preparing them for someone else bullying them. I'm like, wait a minute, of all the things that I've done to you and said to you, and this made you cry?
Right.
Like, this is what it was?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you, they're like, we just wanted a big sister. I was like, no, I had to prepare you for the world. Yeah. Because this world isn't for you.
How did that relationship evolve? Like now, is it because I feel like I have an older brother. Our relationship as kids was one thing, but it has evolved into something different being adults.
I think it depends on the category. So there are certain things that we will lean into together as siblings. And then there are certain things where you'll see Brittany and Courtney, or you'll see Courtney and myself. It really just depends on the scenario. Our relationships are, I wouldn't say they're strained. I think we all have healthy relationships across the board. We know if something happens, we can pick up the phone and someone's going to be there. But it's still a growing relationship. Yes. I will say that. Yes. It is always a work in progress. because not everyone separates what you were trying to do and how it affected them.
Yeah, the intention versus impact, right?
Correct.
Like that's one thing that I found out with my relationship with my sibling as well, is like I think sometimes we romanticize the idea of, oh, we're gonna get to this point where everything's just gonna be good. But like you said, relationships is continues to grow, it changes, people's scenarios change, which means that different stressors change, which means that the relationship changes. And I think it's always a constant process.
As it should, and we just have to nurture the relationship for what it is at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now we've got a working relationship, I guess you could say, where we pick up the phone, hey, what's going on? Everything good with you and your significant other? Yep, the kids are good. How's school going? You know, like those friendly check-ins.
Right.
And every once in a while, you may get a serious conversation in the mix. And I think that's okay for where we are in our lives right now.
Of course.
Because of the goals and expectations that we've put on ourselves.
Nice. Nice. I mean, and that's fair. I think that's fair. And more than fair, that's life. You know,
exactly. You know, that's
what life brings
I think
us.
it's balance.
It is.
You know, because we know once Brittany's past this point and she's done with this course, you know, her outlook will change and her interactions with us will change.
Of course.
Once I'm done with this PCS, same will be for me and everyone else. It's just being mindful of where each person is in their life and in their goal.
Yeah.
To dictate how that relationship is.
That's real. Now, so we talked about like your family, your sisters, your mom and your dad, and then you arrived at some recruiters' doorstep. They probably need to make their numbers. And they were like, holy moly, we have a black woman who wants to join the Marine Corps. Let's sign her up as quick as possible and get her off to boot camp. What did the beginning of your Marine Corps career look like?
So, you know, it's actually funny. I initially joined the Marine Corps to go active duty. That was my goal. It was like, oh, I'm going to go active duty. Went through boot camp, went to MEPS, went through boot camp, all those fun things. You come home on those 10 days of boot leave, and I get a phone call from an OSO. She's like, hey, I see you've been going to school. Like, yes, ma'am. She's like, don't you want to become a Marine Corps officer? Like, not really something I had thought about.
Right.
And my dad looked at me and he goes, those calls don't normally come through.
They don't.
He's like, take the opportunity. And I was like, what does that look like? And she's like, well, you'll go to OCS. You know, we'll split it up for you into 2 summers. I will say this was the biggest mistake of my life.
Going the 2 summers?
Doing the 2 summers.
Okay, all right.
Doing the 2 summers.
I was about to say becoming an officer?
No, that's another one. But doing the 2 summers, she's like, we'll do the PLC juniors and senior program. You'll do your 6 weeks. You'll come back, you'll finish your degree, and then you'll go back another summer and you'll accept your commission. Like, sounds like a pretty good idea. So I went and did that. Didn't go to MCT, didn't go to MOS school.
No kidding.
No kidding.
So straight out of boot camp, they put you into a different pipeline after finishing 13 weeks of
boot camp.
Wow, that's interesting.
So I went up to Quantico. I did the 6 weeks, came back, continued to go to school. And I found a reserve unit to drill with out in Marietta, Georgia. Mag 49 Dead A, HMLA 773. Went out there and I was drilling, but I had no MOS. So you're just kind of floating.
Yes.
You're learning the ins and outs of the Marine Corps. And magically, of course, I ended up in admin.
Okay.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Continued to go to school, finished. It's time to go back to OCS. Go back to seniors. And I got hurt.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know this about you.
And honestly, getting hurt is probably the biggest blessing in disguise that I've ever come across, because it made me make a decision. Do you want to be in the Marine Corps? Do you want to remain a Marine? Because with that injury, I'm at the end of it and it's like, hey, you have to be able to pass your PFT. Like, I can do that. And it's like, no, you can't. We're not willing to risk that. So I went home behind the moto bus.
Wow.
So they're on their moto run, safety vehicle, and I'm behind the safety vehicle while they're on their moto run.
Wow.
So I go home and I'm licking my wounds, trying to figure out, what is it that I want to do?
Wow.
What do I want to keep doing? And I realized staying in the Marine Corps is what it was. But I made that decision. I made the decision that becoming an officer isn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
Right. I realized not being able to have that control in completing something wasn't something I was willing to give up.
Yeah.
So I fought. I fought with my reserve unit to go to MCT, to get an actual MOS. Because at that point in time, because I didn't have an MOS, I couldn't get promoted.
Oh, wow.
I'm just accumulating a cutting score, but because I'm just a basically trained Marine,
you can't
get promoted.
Wow.
So you sit at Lance Corporal doing nothing. I can't deploy because I haven't been to MCT.
Wow.
So it's, okay, what do I need to do? What do I have to do? So I went through every hoop that you could think of to go to MCT. And you go to MCT, you're the oldest person there, you're the only Lance Corporal, and you're looking around like, did I really make the right decision?
Yeah.
And you get through it. And there are still several Marines from MCT that I speak to. And it's like, I can't believe you're still in. I was like, yeah, neither can I.
Yeah.
But, I'm
but it works
here.
out for a reason.
Right. Everyone gets out for a reason. But some of us stay in for a reason too.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, even just the resilience piece of like having that time alone, going like, going back home and realizing like, this is what I want and this is what I need in my life right now, to make that decision to push for something that seemed like it was a trail that hadn't been blazed really.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's very different because they have a program, the 92-day reservist program, but I didn't fall into that category because I had so much time between boot camp and MOS school.
Yeah.
So it's, what do you do? How do you figure this out? So I had to figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
And I did. Hence me sitting here.
Yes.
But yeah, I fought for it. I did that, and a great mentor of mine, Master Gunnery Sergeant Hicks. I'll never forget him.
Shout out Master Guns Hicks.
Right? He came in, he was like, hey, little girl, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know. He's like, don't you want to come on the AR program? And my staff in COIC at the time, Master Gunnery Sergeant John Wayne Lyles, he goes, Alicia, that's what you need. You need to go active duty. Our program needs that. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And just went along with it.
Just went along with it.
And I've never looked back.
That's awesome.
I've never looked back. And his one little question, hey, little girl, what are you doing? Literally changed the trajectory of my career.
Yeah.
Whether he realizes it or not, because he put me in places where I saw things that as a Lance Corporal, I probably shouldn't have seen. You go up to headquarters of Marine Corps and you're the most junior ranking Marine in the building, and you're seeing conversations and movements happen that you wouldn't see until you were much senior in your career, and then realizing who plays what role, where, and when.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like, it really just it's as simple as that sometimes, like it coming down to a question of like, what are you doing? Whether that's an internal question or it's asked by the people around you. I feel like good leaders are able, because usually in the Marine Corps, we don't necessarily ask questions like that.
No.
Like, what are you doing? It's more of like, we pull out a knife hand and we're making a correction like,
yes,
hey, you're doing something wrong, right? But for a leader to be conscious enough to put it in the subordinate's hands and say, hey, what are you doing? Like, and allow you to make the decision from there.
Oh yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Exactly. And he allowed me to make that decision. And at that point in time, I didn't realize what he was doing for my career, what he was doing for my life even. Because while I went up to headquarters of Marine Corps, he turned around and he became my staff in COIC.
Wow.
So he continued to pour into me and asking me those questions. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And making me think more than an average Lance Corporal would.
That's awesome. How did it end up you transitioning from being an enlisted Marine into being a warrant officer?
It was those views. It was those moments of seeing who does what. And you realize that commissioned officers aren't always the ones who make all the decisions.
Yes.
They are given information by senior enlisted, but then there are people who fight at the table that no one talks about. And those are your warrant officers, your chief warrant officers. We don't get a lot of credit for things, but they sit at a table and they battle things out and they give a perspective that others may not have because of our time, both enlisted and now as an officer.
Yeah. So if just to bring the viewers in, like, you know, say for example, you're not in the military and you're hearing us use all this military terminology. Our enlisted individuals in the military are the ones without degrees. Well, you're coming in, well, not without degrees, but
they just don't have a shiny collar.
Yes, they don't have.
That's the way I like to put it.
True.
Because
you came in the organization with 9 times out of 10 without a degree, and you're choosing to go in an enlisted route where you have. I would say the doers. The enlisted route are the doers. Our commissioned officers are seen as like our thinkers. But I would also say our warrant officers are thinkers as well. They are experts. Should I put it like that?
You look at like your CEO.
Right.
You're probably looking at a commissioned officer.
Yes.
You know, obviously there's different levels to being a CEO. And then you've got
the CEO's advisors, really. I mean, like
your executive officers,
yes,
who are underneath your CEOs
mm-hmm.
would be your warrant officers.
Right.
You don't ever talk about them.
Right.
And then you have your workers, all those employees that make up the majority of your organization,
right.
your business.
Well, the good thing about, I feel like with warrant officers, they have that official but also informal power of like expertise, right? Yes. You're so read in on your area of operation or your area of expertise where if there is a question that needs to be answered, one, you probably know it off the top of your head, or you know where to find it quicker than anybody else does based off of the references, the documents, the doctrine that has come many years before you.
Or you know who to ask.
Or you know who to ask, right? You know, it's all about network as well.
It is. The warrant officer community is very much so about who you know.
Mm.
And it's not what you know, it's who you know. And who you know is based on how you make people feel.
Mm.
Right? So I may not know an answer, but I can look at the 5 other people I went to school with and pick up the phone and be like, hey, have you seen this before? And between the 5 of us, we'll figure it out faster than looking it up in the doctrine. That experience goes a long way. Yeah. Yeah. Now that we've kind of talked about, you know, the military path, we've talked about how you made it on that path. You are also a mom and a wife. Yeah. And how does that incorporate with your passion in the military? Like, how does that all play out? It's hard.
Is it?
It's hard.
Is it?
Thankfully, I have a very supporting partner.
Mm-hmm.
He's great. He's a retired Marine.
Yes.
Obviously.
Shout out Ham. Right? I actually played, I've never played on the same team as Ham, but like, especially in Camp Pendleton area on the West Coast, you can catch him in the gym hooping, you know, and doing his thing. Yeah. Shout out Ham.
Catch him being dad.
Yeah.
You know, he holds it down.
That's awesome.
Like, I wouldn't be able to sit here and have this conversation with you if it wasn't for him.
Wow.
Like 100% hands down. It's a very delicate balance, especially for my dynamic, mainly because the roles are reversed. Mm-hmm. We have traditionally switched places as far as who's the stay-at-home parent and who's the one who's going out.
Yes.
So it's different. It's hard
I'm
balancing that. And not that everything has a gender role, but the things that you fall into naturally are very different now.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that do you think from your perspective, is it a battle for you and him to kind of navigate that?
I think it's more of a battle for me than it is for him. You know, he's a lot. He's better at it than I am.
Really?
He is.
That's awesome.
He is better at it. He's better at vocalizing it than I am. He's put me in a position where I have to talk about the things that make me uncomfortable, whether it's at work or at home. You know,
he sounds like a valid partner.
He is.
Yeah.
He does more than any partner that I could think of. You know, no diss to Mariah because I know she holds it down.
No,
but he makes it all possible.
Yes.
You know, he's the one who gets the kids together in the morning. He makes it so that mommy can be a role model for my little girl. You know, but he also shows my son that there's importance in being sensitive. And then he allows me to come in and be the fun mom while also being mom and being present.
Yeah.
He puts me in a position to be the Marine, to come in and to address Marines like people instead of just employees. While we may not always agree on it, on the manner in which I'm doing it, he puts me in the position to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we wouldn't be having this conversation 40, 50 years ago, because I feel like gender norms, gender roles have evolved like they should over time. I mean, like, what worked back then, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it worked for back then, right?
For that time period and for what was allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm allowed to do so much more.
Yes.
And I'm encouraged to do it. And not only am I encouraged to do it, I'm put in a position to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I may encourage you to do something, if I don't give you the ability to do it, can you really accomplish it?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Great point. Great point. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to kick off our next segment. Before we move on, I just want to say thank you for sharing a little bit about you. And I always find value in the Harvest segment of our podcast, because we've talked about this before in your office, where it's like, people often share opinions, but they never really share the perspectives of which those opinions come from. And I feel like the Harvest kind of just gives our listeners, gives myself, like, the person that I'm talking to. It's not just a rank that's on your collar. It's not just one singular title like mom or wife. It's a culmination of all of that and where you came from. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. All right, so we're going to move on to the next segment. Our next segment for the Salad Bowl podcast, we call it the toss-up, right? And everybody chuckles when I say the toss-up. My last guest, actually Warren, who used to work at our building, he flamed me on his episode because he was like, yeah, when you did the episode with your pops.
we talked about it in your office.
Exactly. I was like, all the people who watch, they always get me on that. They're like, oh, so you're just tossing salads with your dad, huh? I'm like, oh, Lord, like, I got to word that differently, but
it's okay. we understand.
There's probably somebody out there going back to that episode with my father right now. Like, what did Kev say? It's embarrassing, but you might want to go check it out. But we're going to do the toss up. And this is the segment where I have my trusty bowl right here with a few questions in it. They are kind of like either or questions. You're going to reach into the bowl, get your question, just hand it to me, and I'll read you your question. And I might ask you after the either or, kind of like the narrative of why you would have answered the question the way that you did. All right. Can we do that? All right. Go ahead and pick your first.
Easy.
You're going to go easy. The one on the top.
I mean, yeah.
Here we go. All right. Your first question on the toss-up is, do you see home as a place or home as a feeling?
We already answered this one. Home is a feeling.
Home as a feeling.
Home is a feeling.
Okay. All right. And when we say home as a feeling, if you had to put that feeling into words, what would it be?
Home is where you go and you're needed, not wanted.
I've never heard of it like that, but that makes so much sense to me.
Like, home is where you need to be to actually make a difference. Where your hugs mean something. Where your good nights mean something. Your spaghetti is devoured because it was made by you.
Yes. Yes. Man, that one hit me right there. Home is where your hugs mean something. Yeah, that means a lot. And that's going to stick with me. That might end up on a quote somewhere, because that one's deep. Because not everywhere are your hugs really, no. One, we're not out here just hugging anybody.
You don't hug everybody. But have you ever hugged someone and you can feel their body just drop?
Yes.
That's what home is.
Yeah.
That's when you're needed. They didn't have to say anything. It was 100% a feeling.
Yes. it's interesting. I the other day Mariah came home, and I think I could do a better job of. She's more of a physical touch type of person, and that's how she accepts her love. But she had a hard day at work, and sometimes just like a 30-second hug for her, you feel exactly what you were just saying. That physical change of just like being held, just means a lot more from
And
the
it's not
people
just
you
being
love.
held. It's
Yeah.
being held by the right person. Because your daughter could have given her that hug, and it's not the same as her husband coming in and the role you fill in her life. Like you giving her that hug, whether it's pushing all the pieces back together or squeezing all that energy out, it was your touch. It was that by you that made it all right. It made it home.
Yeah. That's good right there. That's good. We can move on to the second question. All right, your second question. This is also a very interesting question, seeing as though you're a Marine Corps warrant officer. All right. Would you rather challenge the norms or protect the tradition?
Challenge the norms.
Okay, why is that?
100%. Because the norms that were established in the Marine Corps were norms that were established before I got here.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't taking me into account. And when I say me, I mean a woman, a black person.
Yeah.
They weren't taking me into account. So 100% challenge it.
Mm-hmm.
I said it before, the institution, this world wasn't made for me. So what's expected of me is what was expected of me then. Where we are now hasn't adapted to who I am and what I bring to the table.
I really like that. I think, challenging. I mean, and you talk about that in this organization, but also just in life. I mean, the conversation we just had about you and your household, challenging the norms of like what it would look like back in 1950. A household didn't necessarily look like that, but y'all have challenged the norms in that right. You challenge the norms in being a black woman, and as far as being an officer in the military. It makes my ears ring when you say like, yeah, the world is not ready for who I am now, but it's your job to kind of challenge those norms and make sure that the people that come after you, they're ready for them, You
only grow in times of discomfort. So get uncomfortable.
Yes. There's a person that we both know, Billy Richardson. When we sat down and talked, he was talking about like when you work out, yeah, it's uncomfortable, like the heavy weights, all this stuff, but it's growth.
It is. Like when you actually think about when you work out, because obviously we have to do that for work, right?
Of course.
In order for you to get stronger, you have to break something.
True.
Those muscle fibers actually tear, and they have to repair themselves to become stronger.
Yes.
So you're going to get uncomfortable. You're going to break some things. You're
Right.
going to question some things.
Yeah.
If you want to grow.
Yeah. If it's, I feel like if it's easy, it's probably not doing much for you.
It's not worth it.
It's really not worth it. Yeah.
Take that first question.
Yeah.
Because we had already answered it.
True. All right. We're going to move on to our third question.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Here we go. All right. Let's go with the light. See what it says. All righty. Oof. Would you rather lose love but know it fully, or never know it at all?
I'd rather lose love
Hmm.
and know it fully.
Why is that?
Because to have loved someone means that you've opened up. It means you've grown.
Yeah.
And when you lose it, you lost it for a reason. And maybe you need to grow again.
That was deep right there. I can't do anything but agree with you on that one. Man. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That was a word right there. And if you lose it, maybe you need it to grow again.
Yeah.
Oof. I feel like, especially in nowadays where we feel like love is a little bit more temporary nowadays, or our perception of love seems more temporary, especially in like your standard relationship where people are like, I think we treat kind of love like, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
It's very interchangeable.
Yes.
As we see it now.
As we see it now, yeah.
You know, we go back to our parents and even our grandparents. It's very different.
Very different.
It's very different, but there were levels to it. You know,
Agreed.
What was it? You have to respect someone in order to like them. And in order to love them, you have to have liked them at some point in time.
Of course.
But kind of like and love go hand in hand
They do.
nowadays.
They do. Yeah, I mean, man, I think that's also kind of like looking at leadership approaches. Of course, you and I have a lot of leadership conversations. People are always like, this is leadership, not likership. And my response to them all the time is like, but have you ever tried to lead somebody who don't like you? Like,
it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's actually like likership is actually part of leadership.
It is.
So we're acting like they're two different things.
Just knowing who they are, what motivates them. Like I said, it just goes back to who are you?
Yeah. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Hopefully that Master Guns actually watches this episode. He's gonna be like, yo, they're using my stuff.
You know, hey, little girl, what are you doing?
Right. What are you doing? I like that. I like that. To have known love and lost it rather than not known it at all. I really like that answer. All right. We're on question 4. All right, here we go. Question 4 of the toss-up. Would you rather outgrow your surroundings or have them grow with you?
Ooh. I'd want them to grow with me.
Okay. Why is that?
Because being a big fish in a little pond, it's really lonely.
Oof. Tell me more about that.
So if your surroundings constantly stay the same and you're constantly growing, you're going to stop growing at some point.
Yeah.
You're going to remain stagnant because you will have read all the books, you will have done all the things, and there will be nothing new to make you see a new perspective. You won't be brought in anything new. But if my surroundings continue to grow, I will have to continue to chase after it. I will have to continue to go. I will have to continue to meet new people, read new books, have different conversations, and rethink things that I thought were set in stone.
Yes. I've come to find out even about myself, and I'm listening to you say that. I'm like, I've come to really despise if I feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. Like, I never want to be the smartest person in the room because I feel like I get so complacent. I feel like it's too comfortable for me. Even when, like, if I teach a class and it's like junior Marines where I'm more teaching them rather than learning from them, people are like, oh, that's great. I'm like, okay, but like that should have happened that way. You know, like that's expected. I'm the one that's giving my expertise, but I feel like I need to get in a room to where I receive something as well.
Right.
You know,
And you can get that from those younger Marines.
of course, yeah.
You know,
they're always going to bring
it's
something to
just
the table.
putting them in a position where they want to.
Of course.
And that they can.
Yes.
It's a big thing.
There's so much talent and so much perspective when it comes to our subordinates. If we're talking about our organization, there's a Marine that works in our building actually that, you know, I never had a conversation with him until probably like a month ago, and he's a corporal, so he's an E4, and he's like, hey, what's going on, Master? How you doing? Maybe giving me the greeting of the day, and he said something like, hey, I saw your podcast, and I was like, oh, thanks, man. You know, you ain't have to watch my podcast, but and then I never would have guessed it, but he started going into the analytics of like, how do I make my podcast really good? And he's like a S4 Marine. So he's in like facilities or he does something with our logistics. But he was actually a genius when it came to the social media aspect of like running a business. And I'm like, I wonder how many people know that we have a genius sitting right in front of us. He was going deep into the analytics of what you need to do, how you need to do it. He's like, I've taken pages and they've gone from 100 followers to 100,000 followers or something like that. I'm just like, wow, like I wonder if we really knew the talent we had in front of us.
We have you in S4. Why are you not in Comstrat?
Exactly.
Why are you not running our...
Exactly.
It's amazing how a simple good morning
can open that up. Yeah.
Can open up so many doors.
Yes.
And while it's just good morning, how are you doing?
Yes.
What's going on?
Yes.
And actually listening,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you figure it all out.
Exactly. I feel like that's most of, I probably shouldn't tell the Marine Corps this, but like that's most of my day when I go to work is when I open up a conversation or somebody knocks on my door and they just want to drop by just to talk. Like, I feel like that's where the most work is done. The human interaction between people.
It is. As much as we like to think as the Marine Corps is a business, it's a social club.
Yes, it really is. When you think about it,
it's a social club.
I couldn't disagree with you on that.
It's a social club. We go in and we take care of the work that needs to be done. But the real work is happening when we're having those interactions,
Yes.
when we're socializing with one another, whether it's amongst ourselves or with our customers, someone who needs our assistance.
Yes.
That socialization is what gets the job done.
Yeah. I couldn't disagree with that fact right there. Like, and I've never heard it put like that. This is also the cool thing about sitting with intellectuals like you. Is like, man, of course I've lived this experience for this long, but I've never heard it like that. You know, it really is a social club. It breaks down into cliques. It breaks down into who's like me, who's not like me, who's daring, who's open enough to say good morning and have a conversation past the expected good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am, and just keep it moving. Definitely a social club. I really like that answer.
Yes.
Really like that answer. All right, the last question.
All right, let's do it.
Here we go. All right, would you rather keep your culture sacred or share it openly?
Share it openly.
Okay. Unapologetic, huh?
Unapologetically.
Why is that?
Unapologetically. If you don't know where I've come from or why I view things a certain way, you will never know who I am.
I like that. Give me more than that.
He's like, give me more.
Yeah, because that's a great point. Continue, please. I don't want to cut you off.
If you don't know someone's past, you can't know why they are where they are or why they are the way they are. Your viewpoint on me is based on what you see and how you know my culture to be. How do I know a Black female to be? So you've put me in this box. But if you understand everything that I had to do to get here, you then understand more about me and why I may not fit in that box.
Yeah. What's the responsibility of the person who's viewing you in that box to branch out and either ask the question or be curious?
I think that responsibility goes both ways.
Okay.
Because see, now you got me thinking.
That was my intention.
I know. It is solely my responsibility. Because you're my responsibility. When you walked in my office and we sat down for that initial counseling, you became my responsibility. And it is then my responsibility to know who you are. Granted, it's also your responsibility to ensure that I know who you are.
Yeah.
But I have to open that door.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why I like your leadership approach so much, because one, there are some leaders who lack the accountability of saying like, you know what, I play a role in getting to know you, or that we run. I had a conversation with a leader the other day, and every time things got to the feelings portion of our conversation, they kind of ran from the conversation. They were like, oh, you're talking about all these feelings and I don't need to get that far into it. And it's like, that's actually part of, the leadership aspect. Like being in tune with, of course, can't be in tune with every single feeling that they have, but for you to be aware of it, it's our responsibility to lead our subordinates based off of knowing where they're at. And I think it really comes back down to the equity piece of leadership. Is like, I think the best leaders that I can think of in my Marine Corps career met me where I was at. They were able to identify, you know what, Kev's not good at that. Maybe we need to give him some more repetitions on this level. Or Kev is very talented in this area. Let's put him out front. Let's have him talk to A, B, C, or D. So I feel like we have to be equitable in how we approach people's feelings as well. Because I would say our Marines are very emotionally intelligent nowadays.
They are. Some more than others.
Agreed. Agreed.
And there's nothing wrong with that. They just have to be given the space to develop it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not given the space, you can't be disappointed in the outcome.
Yes.
If I don't do my part, I can't be upset with what's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Did I give you all the tools you needed to be successful?
Right. Yeah. I guess since we're talking about our organization as far as the Marine Corps, what do you think that there is a different role for? I mean, we know that the construct of this organization comes with, enlisted Marines and officers, but like when we look at staff non-commissioned officers or staff NCOs, which are like middle management for this organization, we have our warrant officers who are kind of like our brains that have the expertise, and then we have our commissioned officers who are like the CEOs. Do you feel like there are certain roles that shouldn't overlap between those individuals?
No, because everyone has something to bring to the table. If we're not willing to allow those roles and responsibilities to overlap, we are going to miss something.
Yeah.
Because my staff NCOs, regardless of how old they are or how young they are,
Mm-hmm.
they bring a perspective that I'm not going to have, for the simple fact that they sit out on the floor.
Yeah.
And I'm in an office. My perspective is just of what I hear and see from that office. Whereas my staff NCO will be out there on the floor seeing things on the other side of the cubicle that I may not see. That NCO is going to see things that staff NCO isn't going to see. And they may or may not relay it to them, which would affect how that staff NCO does work.
Yeah.
And then would determine how I approach a situation, which should determine how that CEO approaches a situation.
Yeah.
So we have to overlap to ensure that we can produce the best product.
I like that because I hear so often, which actually is probably a pet peeve of mine. I hear this saying that in a lot of organizational spaces, I've heard this, but people say, "Oh, that's not my lane." It like ticks me off because I'm like, what do you mean it's not your lane? If we are all on the same team, how are you claiming that this is not your lane to make somebody better or to acknowledge, or if you see something, say something?
And it's just, for me, it's a gentle reminder of, what does your promotion warrant say? It says any Marine of a lesser grade. They're all your responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. But people will hide behind, oh, that person's not in my section. That person I didn't go to boot camp with, so I'm not going to hold them accountable, or,
At the end of the day, if something needs to be done and we need to be gone, we're not going to be concerned about what section you belong to.
Right.
Who I may upset by having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
It's a matter of getting it done.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Because
it wouldn't go down that way if we are here as a warfighting organization. It wouldn't go down that way. That's not an excuse to a family when their loved one doesn't come back. Well, that person wasn't in my section, right?
No.
It wasn't my lane to save their life or to get them out of harm's way.
Did you have the ability to? Did you have the ability to interject yourself?
Yes.
And to assist?
Yes. Yes.
And if you did and you didn't,
yeah, we're looking at you sideways a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't trust you. I don't trust you at all. All right, well, that wraps up the toss-up. Thanks for answering those 5 questions. I think you did a phenomenal job. And I love getting the perspective behind just the either or. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Do it.
All right. So we've talked about a lot. We've talked about what your family looked like all the way up through high school. You joining the military, crossing over from being enlisted to being a warrant officer, your leadership approaches, your worldviews. And what I like to do now is I do this with all my guests. We're gonna move to this segment called The Final Bite. And this is where I know that somebody like you always has something in their back pocket to like leave us with, as far as like an ideology, something on your heart, something on your mind. It doesn't have to be military based. It doesn't have to be leadership based. It could be whatever you want. But is there something that Alicia Polk, especially knowing that, you know, we have the ability to document conversations like this, and somebody may watch this 20 years from now. Somebody may watch this 2 weeks from now once it's edited. But like, is there a message that you want to leave the Salad Bowl podcast listeners with that could really resonate? A timeless message or a message that's relevant right now?
Own who you are.
Own who you are. Why is that message relevant?
Because in this world, while we may not own a lot of things, we're buying and selling and trading and doing all of those things. Who you are is the one thing that you have complete and absolute control over.
Mm. Mm.
Own who you are.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being the kid down the street who grew up in the backwoods. There's nothing wrong with being the spoon-fed kid, the silver spoon kid.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Own it. Owning who you are makes you who you are. Don't run from it. Own it. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that message. Wise man once told me, control what you can control, because when you worry about what you can't control, you lose all control.
Absolutely.
Right? And just in hearing your message of saying just own what you have, like, I think that's the relevance of this podcast in the first place. Like, it's all about who you are, what you bring to the table, as far as whatever ingredient you may add on to the salad. And we all have something. Even if we come off very similar, there's something that you have that I don't have. I don't care if I'm sitting here talking to an identical twin. They're still going to come off different, you know?
There's a difference.
Yeah. So own who you are. I'm pretty sure you've seen this in your spaces, because you see a lot. You see a lot of people. A lot of people work for you. Actually, you have a really big section. I know this for a fact. Have you ever seen somebody fight who they are, or
Absolutely.
somebody who is uncomfortable with who they are? What advice would you give them?
It's okay to be different. It's okay to not understand why others don't accept you, but accept yourself.
Yeah.
Accept yourself for who you are. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. I think do you think it's one of those messages that's is maybe easier said than done, right? Because I think one of the things that I've seen is society tells us, you know, a lot of things, you know, that message is very relevant, but, you know, once you hear that message, actually acting it out, right? Where there's so many things that society may tell us to second guess ourselves on. How would you push past those things?
You have to live with you. You have to go home. And those feelings that you have in not owning yourself or just playing the role will stay with you.
Yeah.
They will stay with you at bedtime. They will stay with you as you eat, while you shower. Is that what you want company?
Yeah. That hit home right there. It actually makes me think of my own personal experiences where I feel like I've minimized myself in certain areas, all because of what people thought. And you're right, it sticks with you. I'm thinking about like 3 different times in my mind right now that I won't even discuss, where I'm just like, dang, I really did that. You know, on account of what? I'm the only person who paid for that. Made everybody else feel comfortable except me.
Like I said, you will only grow in times of
Mm.
You want that space to grow.
Yeah.
They have to be uncomfortable too.
Yes.
You shouldn't have to live in discomfort.
Mm. Mm.
Own you.
Yeah. I think that is a phenomenal final bite. I know that as we wrap up here, I know that you took some time out of your day to come sit with me, and I just want to say that I truly appreciate it. Alicia's in the middle of PCSing, and if you don't know what a PCS is, that means that you're in the military and you have to move spots. So she's leaving New Orleans. She's headed to another location, and I had to snag her before she got out of here to sit on this podcast, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And thanks to your husband as well for holding it down at the household, for you to be able to capture this moment between two friends, two colleagues, to have a conversation that I think that someone would love to be the fly on the wall for. So I just want to say thank you for taking your time.
Thank you for having me. You know, we've probably had many podcasts
Yes.
in our offices
Yes,
on more
we
than
have.
one occasion.
Definitely.
So it's nice to be able to go back and be like, yep, I remember that.
Yes.
We did that.
I think there's going to be a lot of value. One thing that I'm finding out with this podcast is that, you know, the value of these episodes grows over time, right?
They do.
Like we're sitting down, I'm loving talking to you right now, but like, to be honest with you, like 10 years from now, when I'm out the Marine Corps and I said,
like
man,
10
I
months
did
from now.
Yeah, right. But 10 years, like even further down the road, I'll probably have a big gray beard, but I'll be able to, if YouTube's still around during that time, you know, turn on the television or my computer and say like, oh, I remember that conversation. Yeah. You know, like, oh, wow, that was a really good point. And now it's relevant in my civilian life, just like it was when I was a United States Marine.
I'm excited about it because I can see where I've grown.
Mm.
You know, 5 years from now, I go back and I look and I'm like, do you still feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Is it still true?
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Or it's like, hey, you stopped growing. It's that reminder.
Yes.
Like, keep moving forward.
100%. Oh my goodness. Well, at least thank you so much for spending time with me. To the viewers out there, just want to say, hey, thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you follow me on all your places that you get your podcast, and then subscribe to my YouTube page. It's the Salad Bowl Podcast. And I really appreciate your insight as well. Make sure you leave comments, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, because it's really your feedback that helps me make this thing a lot better. Tell me somebody that you would love me to sit down and talk to. Tell me if you don't even want me to be the host and we get somebody else to host this thing. No, but I'm very interested in your feedback. Feedback makes this thing a lot better. And shout out to the people who have been giving me feedback up until this point to make sure that this show stays relevant and this content is something that's worth watching. So thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Salad Bowl Podcast, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl. You are now tuned into the
Listen up, don't care if you about to pass out or you just getting up. You really did your thing with this one, Kevin, gotta give it up. Messages you bring and be motivation to live it up. We out here really normalizing authenticity. Can't be talking all the time, cause that mean you ain't listening. I think you look better when you smile, I see you glistening. Communication helping me to see what you envisioning. Yeah, back to the mission then. Whether you black, white, brown, yellow, or green, more can be accomplished as a team. Together, the problem is never as hard as it may seem. Lot of captivating convos like Martin telling his dream. We choosing curiosity over certainty. You should certainly subscribe to this one here with some urgency. This a win. Even Cali know you are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
Salad Bowl Podcast.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
Yeah, you are now tuned in to the...
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
You are now tuned into the Salad Bowl Podcast with Kevin Thompson.